Welcome to the Service Game, where serve starts the story. I'm your host, IVJ, and in this week's episode, I will be talking about the Middle East swing and everything that went on both the women's tour and the men's tour. I really think to sort of follow up from last week's theme, it has been such a good tennis week. I feel like even though we had our first Grand Slam, everyone I feel like sometimes you get the post-Grand Slam sadness just because there isn't that much tennis going on. However, I feel like this year, because the Grand Slam, there wasn't really a lot of really thrilling matches this year in Australia. So even though I still kind of felt sad after Australia ended, I think this Middle East swing really delivered some matches that we didn't really get to see in Australia. And it's just been really interesting to see a lot of players who were just dismissed in Australia performing really well here. So yeah, and let's just get right into the first segment of this week's show, which is the toss. Okay, so welcome to the toss. The toss is our first segment of every first serve episode, and it will just kind of overview the news, the main thing that happened over tennis that's not really on the court. So we have a lot of players withdrawing from tournaments from the Middle East swing. For example, Aryna Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek, because of Aryna cited a hip injury and Iga just cited that the schedule is really hectic. They both withdrew from the Dubai Open, and this caused a little bit of controversy and a statement by the Dubai tournament director, Salah Talek. So he basically called for deducting points from players who make last-minute withdrawals. So even though currently there is a fine set in place, which means that because these 1,000 points tournaments are mandatory, if you withdraw last minute, you will be paying a fine. But he said that the fine will not do anything, and he cited an example, I believe, with Serena Williams, how Serena has so much money that just merely a simple fine is not going to stop them from withdrawing. And he's saying that we should deduct points so that players can feel like they will feel obligated to participate in these tournaments. And I think there's definitely both sides to this, but I just want to first tell you guys what the players felt. So when Coco Gauff was asked about this in the press conference, she said that it is unfair for the tournament to be deducting points because players are already receiving 0 points from not playing in the tournament, and it's just unfair for them to deduct points because she's citing that even though this tournament is so early on in the season, it's better for players to sort of skip this tournament if they know that they will have burnout later on in the season. And she also cited one of the reasons for a lot of these players withdrawing is the 2 weeks 1,000 tournaments, because this is such an important tournament. However, it's extended to 2 weeks, which means that there's a little not that much rest time in between this tournament, Dubai, compared to the last one, which is in Qatar. So a lot of players, they really have just an immediate turnaround time. So she proposed optional 1,000 events. So when I'm saying 1,000, it means that it's the second most important tournament on the tour. So first we have the Grand Slams, where players earn 2,000 points if they win that tournament, and the 1,000 tournaments are the second most point worthy. So if you win this tournament, you get 1,000 points, and all of them on the women's tour is mandatory. But on the men's tour, there's some that's optional, such as Monte Carlo. So Coco Gauff is saying that maybe we need to include these optional 1,000 tournaments so that it's easier for the athletes to sort of schedule to sort of manage what tournaments they should and shouldn't compete in. That's best for both their physical and mental health. And in my opinion, I think this is just a really difficult situation for both the players and the tournaments, because for the tournaments, they definitely promised their audience and their sponsors that top players will be playing because it's mandatory. However, they're unable to meet these promises because of the last minute withdrawals. So it's just really hard for the tournament to sort of address their sponsors if these top players are not competing in these tournaments. However, I feel like for the player side as well, docking points is definitely not the solution because players should definitely not feel obligated to compete if they're not physically fit. And he was saying that last minute withdrawals will be like, Salatalik was saying that will be, he proposed deducting points. However, I feel like that's just a really vague thing to say because what considers as a last minute withdrawal, and what if a player genuinely like injured themselves during practice and has to withdraw last minute and they had the full intention of playing that tournament? Does that also mean that they will be deducting points simply because they injured themselves? So there's just a lot of fine lines, and I think also optional tournaments may be hard to just implement because like all of these tournaments are mandatory, and which tournament will we make optional? So it's just like there's a lot to go on. Maybe if we slowly start negotiating with all of these tournaments and being like, okay, maybe this year you can be optional, next year the other one can be optional. But it's just a lot of work, and I think that will take a long time. And in my opinion, we really just need 1 week of thousands. We need to shorten these tournaments. I know that the tournament directors for the tournaments, they want to make money and just, yeah. However, I think if we shorten these tournaments, first of all, the matches, they'll be more packed, and I think that will add more entertainment values as well. And players have a greater incentive of participating just because they're shorter. And maybe we'll see some of the top players competing like week after, sort of like more frequently, because now, as I said before, Iga has been withdrawing. Arena hasn't competed since Australia. So yeah. So I think the main point here is just trying to balance the player's health with the tournament's entertainment value. But yeah, definitely let me know what you guys think, because this is quite a big situation that has been going on for a long time now. But without further ado, let's get right into our second segment, our main segment, The Hit. Alright, welcome back to The Hit. And I think I kind of want to start off with the Qatar Open that took place over the past week on the men's tour. And this is our first time seeing Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner back after Australia, and I think there is a lot to unpack. I guess we can start from Jannik Sinner. So I think going into this tournament, at least for me, I had higher expectations for Sinner because I feel like on these sort of tour level events, he's more than Alcaraz is the one that's always more stable and being able to win these titles and just dismiss his opponents. However, this really isn't the case. He played against Jakub Mensik in the quarterfinals, and he actually lost that quarterfinal to Mensik. I mean, I kind of want to not take anything away from Mensik because Mensik has a lethal backhand, and I mean, he did win a title in Miami last year, beating Novak Djokovic, his idol. And I really do think he hasn't made that much noise since then, but his form has been pretty good. He won the Auckland title, and he was going to play against Djokovic at Australia, but he unfortunately had to withdrew. I mean, I really do think Mensik is able to challenge Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. Maybe just like, I feel like that kind of just shows that also it takes a lot to challenge these two players, because right after that he played against Arthur Fils and lost that. I think he was just not physically ready. This match against Jannik Sinner definitely took a lot away from him. And also, I think it's really interesting because Sinner from last year's US Open, after he lost to Carlos Alcaraz, said that he wants to implement more variety to his game, which I think is something really interesting because Sinner is, compared to Carlos, is not someone who's known for hitting all these drop shots, hitting all these volleys. Sinner's just known for hitting the living daylight out of the ball. But it's funny because I feel like in Australia, him trying to implement these new techniques sort of did work. Sort of like going up to the net more, hitting more volleys did work. But against Mensik, I really didn't think it worked. I mean, at one point, it was kind of like there were several points where I feel like, okay, Sinner going up to the net, trying these drop shots are working. But I think because Mensik has a really, really good backhand, Sinner should just like go back to how he usually is and just try to hit, like, rally with Mensik and try to break down his backhand, and or maybe even just target his forehand, because his forehand is so much, I feel like, weaker compared to his backhand. But yeah, I just don't think Sinner's variety worked, and this is really interesting because we still haven't got a Sincaraz meeting except for that exhibition match this season. I know it's only been 2 tournaments, but still, I feel like the tournament directors are probably really sad that we didn't get a Sincaraz final. But moving on, I think I want to talk about Arthur Fils, who had his second tournament after his comeback, and really interesting, he's working with Goran Ivanisevic, which is Djokovic's former coach, who he worked with Stefanos Tsitsipas for like 2 short months, and it just didn't work at all. I mean, Fils, I think, is one of the most talented players out there. I really do think he is such like a dynamic player to watch. He's really fun to watch because he has incredible shot making skills, but because of his injury last year, it sort of just set him back a little bit. And to be honest, when he was playing against Jakub Mensik in the semifinals, I really thought that it would be a good match. Kind of a part of me wanted to see Mensik versus Alcaraz in the final, but also I understood that Mensik was definitely really extremely worn down after beating Sinner, so this was just pretty one-sided. But I really liked how Fils, I feel like this is how Jannik Sinner should have played. Fils was just hitting the ball to Jakub Mensik's forehand like constantly, and sort of just doing that, he kind of broke down Mensik's forehand. So that was, I think, a pretty wise and mature thing for him to do. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how his partnership with Goran will work out, because obviously he's such an amazing coach, and Fils is one of, in my opinion, the most talented players who might have a chance of challenging the whole Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner situation. So we'll see where that lands us. But yeah. Okay, and then I want to talk about Carlos Alcaraz. Like, he is just on a whole nother level compared to these other players. I think I just want to talk about how he played his match against Karen Khachanov was, I think, one of the best match of the season so far. You guys should definitely go watch the highlights. Like, Khachanov is playing the tennis of his life. He's hitting, like, I've never seen him hit the ball that hard and play with so much variety. It was actually a really, really, like, I feel like the best version of Karen Khachanov, at least I have ever seen. But I don't know, like, Carlos is just able to get to all of those shots and just hit some, like, literally amazing balls. Like, I can never imagine someone getting to those balls. And really, like, I feel like if Khachanov were to play against any players, he genuinely would have won. But because he's facing against Carlos Alcaraz, it's just, he really can't do anything about it. And I feel like that sort of also applied to Andrei Rublev, which was Carlos Alcaraz's semifinal opponent. Like, Rublev was playing great too, but Carlos, I mean, just like, even though both of those matches were really tight, but he was just able to like pull through, and just, I think it's really admirable how he's able to elevate his level more when he sees that his opponent is at a higher level, and he's not going to, let's say his opponents are not playing that well, he's not going to play down to their level, and when his opponents are playing well, he's able to play even better than his opponent, which I think is truly one of the reasons why he is the world number one and why he sort of like stands out from the rest of the field. And that's really, like, I feel like a big improvement, because last year I feel like we sort of talk about Jannik Sinner as the guy who's more stable and winning these tour level matches and dismissing his opponents, which Carlos, to be honest, against Khachanov and Rublev wasn't like completely dismissing them, but both of the other two were playing like really, really good tennis, and for Carlos to still be able to pull through even after like winning Australia is really amazing to me. And now we'll talk about the final, which is Alcaraz against Fils. Like, okay, Alcaraz was unplayable. Like, there was nothing really Fils could have done. 6-1, 6-2, it was over really quickly. I mean, like, it was just like ungodly level from Alcaraz. It was literally so good. So please go watch that match as well. I mean, there's really not that much to say except that Carlos is just playing at such a high level. And it's so interesting because I feel like it's funny how the tables sort of have turned, because Carlos is not known for being the steady ones, as I kind of mentioned before. It's sort of, that was Jannik Sinner who was dismissing his opponents and getting to these top matches and getting to the top sort of like titles. But I know it's still so early on, but Sinner is actually losing earlier, and now Carlos is winning these titles, which is really interesting. But I mean, for me, I just really want to see another Sincaraz final, hopefully really soon. But yeah, okay, now we'll take a break and we'll talk about the women's side in the Dubai Open. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Let's talk Dubai. So I kind of first want to talk about Alex Yala versus Jasmine Paolini. This was a great match. Also, on a side note, I have all my matches linked in my show notes, like the matches I've talked about and the highlights linked in my show notes. So if you guys want to go check it out. But I was really admiring Yala's ability to sort of compose herself, because she lost a break advantage in the second set and she saved a few set points from Paolini to manage to close the second set off in what is an amazing, amazing tiebreak. Please go check that out. For Paolini, it's not a great start to 2026. I mean, I think 2024 season was just magical, and 2025, I mean, even though it wasn't as incredible as her 2024 season, I think she still did good, and it's sort of just like, even though I wouldn't say completely like surpassed her 2024 or that it matched it, but I think it was like understandable and a pretty good season. But I think 2026 has been a little rough. I think she needs a little reset. I mean, it's still so early on, but I feel like she often do really well in these Middle East tournaments. But she's also a really great clay player and clay court player and a grass court player. So even though we do still have the US swing of Miami and Indian Wells, I think there's still also so much time for her to sort of just reset and find her form again. But in terms of Yala, she has an incredible record against top 10 players. She has a record of 3-2 against top 10 players. And this is her first top 10 win since her run in Miami last year, where she beat Iga Swiatek. So yeah, I mean, that's a really impressive record of playing against top 10 players. And I mean, I think there's a lot of pressure on her, especially coming into the US swing with Indian Wells and Miami coming really, really soon. But I believe that she's not really, like, I think she's not really that affected, at least in terms of her tennis. I don't think she's really that affected by the external pressures. I think it's sort of, she uses it as a fuel. And I mean, obviously we can't expect her to just suddenly come out and win like these Grand Slams or like an 1,000 level title, but I think just making these like small wins against these top 10 players is really showing that she is in the right direction to breaking through. Okay, now I want to talk about Elena Svitolina versus Coco Gauff. Because guys, this was the ultimate grind match. It was such a grind for both of these two players. I mean, Coco Gauff, before this, she played against Elisa Mertens. She found a way to win with 16 double faults. She saved 3 match points. And I feel like this just proves that Coco Gauff isn't as low as you think she is, and she isn't really as like high as you think she is. Like, you never really know, because before I was kind of concerned that she lost her ability to win these scrappy matches, because that's what she's known for. She's known for winning these matches when she's not performing at her best. But for example, she lost to Coach Guerrero in Qatar last tournament. So I feel like her win against Elisa Mertens really shows that she's still able to scrap, like to play these matches. These really just, I don't know, when she's not in her best form, she's still able to scrape by and win. And against Svitolina, this was crazy. Like, okay, Svitolina saved 5 match points, including one. Coco Gauff saved 5 match points in the second set tiebreak. This was insane. The tiebreak went to 15. Please go watch the tiebreak. And she won that tiebreak. She saved 5 match points in that tiebreak, including one that bounced on a net court that went up, and she had to adjust in the very last second to hit a volley put away shot. But yeah, this was an incredible tiebreak. But Svitolina, like, she's 31 years old playing the tennis of her life. I think in the live ranking for this season, she's tied with Sabalenka. And she's just like, I don't know, she does really good in these Middle East tournaments. This is her third final in Dubai. And yeah, she's just really solid. But now we'll talk about the final, which was between Svitolina and Pegula. I think obviously because the semifinal against Coco Gauff was so long and such a battle, it definitely took a lot away from Svitolina. But I think in terms of Jessica Pegula, she's so calm on the court, and I think she just exudes the energy of like calmness, especially in the semifinal. She played against Anisimova, and it just kind of shows like the contrast between the two players. And Anisimova also is playing really great. She beat Andreeva, who is the defending champion. But for Pegula, so like Anisimova is playing great tennis, but Pegula was just so calm, and compared to Anisimova, who seemed really stressed at times, it was just like such a stark contrast between the two. She was also down a set and a break, but she just seemed so composed. And now after beating Anisimova, she has a 5-0 head-to-head, which is really interesting to me, because I think this might be a matchup problem for Anisimova, because I mean, Anisimova is known for just hitting the living daylight out of the ball, and Pegula is known for being sort of steady but taking risks when she has to. And I think that sort of, in a way, frustrates Anisimova, because as the rally goes on and on more, I feel like she sometimes gets a little bit impatient and just tries to end the point. And that's how Pegula, I feel like, finds a way to win all of these matches against Anisimova. But yeah, I mean, just like the contrast between the two during their semifinal of just how calm Pegula was being, even like being literally almost gonna lose. She was down a set in a break, but she was just really composed and managed to pull through. And I mean, the final it just shows how solid. As I said, Svitolina was a little worn out, but I mean, yeah, like Pegula is just so solid, and this is her 10th title, and I really do hope that she gets really far. I feel like the talk of whether she will or will not get a Grand Slam title has been so just talked about. I mean, for me, I think it's really hard for her to get a Grand Slam title because of the field, because of she's not, like, if she plays against Sabalenka, we've seen that in the US Open final 2 years ago now, I believe. And Iga Swiatek is also a problem, but I mean, you never know with her just because she's always so calm, and I just really like watching her play because I don't know, it just makes me feel calm too. I know I keep on repeating the word calm, but I think that's just what she exudes. So yeah, but there were a lot of great matches in Dubai too, so if you guys want to go check it out, please feel free. But now we'll get into our last segment, which is the follow-through. Okay, we'll come back to the follow-through. So on the women's side, the next tournament the big tournament will obviously be Indian Wells, which will be taking place on March 4th. I think I will be doing like a preview show of the draw analysis, so that will be coming out, I think, a few days, like 2 days before the tournament starts. So definitely keep an eye out for that, and it's good for these players to sort of just like reset a little bit before the madness sets in on the whole US swing. For the men's side, we have the Rio Open, which actually took place this week. I just didn't talk about it because there was a lot of other stuff that I wanted to get through. But please go check out the story of Ignacio Bus. It's really interesting. The semifinal actually got postponed because of the rain delay, so I think the final is also happening today or tomorrow, I'm not really sure, but he beat Joao Fonseca and Matteo Berrettini, so please check him out. It was pretty good matches. Now we have the Dubai Open, and we have Felix Auger-Aliassime, Daniel Medvedev, and Arthur Fils returning, which is interesting because I feel like Fils just suffered from an injury and he's just returning, but he's literally injuring himself in tournaments week after week after week. So I don't know how that's going to go. I mean, hopefully it just helps him sort of speeds up the recovery process and just get back into the tour, but I'm really scared that he's going to re-injure himself again. And then we also have the Acapulco Open, which is Zverev's comeback tournament after Australia. It's really interesting how I feel like every year he decides to play in the clay tournament, not the Middle East swing, because I feel like for him, he knows that clay is one of his strong suits, and he sort of want to use this opportunity to prepare himself for the French Open, but we'll see how that goes. I mean, this year he's been playing pretty well in Australia, so I'm excited to see his prospects. But yeah, that's all for today's episode. I mean, next episode we'll just talk about the the Dubai Open on the men's side, as well as the Acapulco Opens. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. I think my second serve episode will come out in March. That will be on Substack, so please go subscribe to me on there. I'm really excited for it. I've done some research. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, but yeah, it's going to be written format, so go subscribe to me on Substack and rate the show. It really helps out a lot. As I said before in my toss, like the toss segment, I kind of want you guys to comment below your thoughts on players withdrawing from tournaments, and if you disagree or agree or disagree with what the tournament director has said about deducting points and what I said. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Let the serves continue, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.